Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Build a Ransomware Recovery Plan. Thank you so much for being on the event today. We've got a great presentation and a live demo lined up for you. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about the webinar. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. As always at Actual Tech Media, we want our events to be educational and to help solve your technology challenges. So we encourage questions there in the questions pane of your audience console, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session, so we need your questions. We also have a best question prize, which I'll talk about in a moment. I want to call your attention as well to the handouts tab there, where you'll find additional resources on today's topic. And then we also have an Amazon $300 gift card as our door prize. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found there in the handouts tab. And then, as I mentioned, we also have our best question prize we're running today for another $50 Amazon gift card. The prize winner will be selected after the event, and you must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. And with that, I'm excited now to bring in our two expert presenters. Welcome now Mr. Matt Bisceglia, Security Account Executive, and Mr. Adam Turner, Senior Sales Engineer, both from Rubrik. It's great to have you on. I'll first hand it off to you, Matt. Take it away.
Great, thanks, David. And thank you, everybody, for making some time today. My name is Matt Bisceglia, as David had mentioned, and want to have an overview of how Rubrik can help you build a ransomware recovery plan. And so for today, Adam Turner and I are going to walk you guys through an approach that can help you dig yourself out of a hole, knock on wood, that a ransomware attack would occur in your environment. So I have a couple quick slides to set the context and give you guys some perspective. And then I'll pass it over to Adam, and he can walk you guys through the capabilities in action. So let's get going. So it all kind of starts when we've been getting and helping field questions from customers as they start to ask questions or get questions from their leadership teams, the board, C-level executives: is our data safe? Ransomware it's front page news for everybody. And I think there's a concern around, do we have a plan? Have we tested the plan? If we get hit with ransomware, can we recover? How quickly will that take? What data might have been exfiltrated in the attack? And what we're seeing as we've studied these attacks as they occur is the bad guys are breaking through the thicker walls and getting to the data. And in many cases, they're even doing things like double extortion techniques, where they're going to encrypt your data and then exfiltrate. They'll steal sensitive information and then leak that to the dark web to get you to pay up. And these techniques are getting more sophisticated. And even as we build thicker walls and more layers, they continue to get through. So from Rubrik's perspective, we've really built security at the point of data. We've built resiliency from day one into our platform to give you the ability to recover from a ransomware attack. And as the bad guys break through those thicker walls, they sort of bounce off your backup system with Rubrik, and that gives you the platform to recover. And from Rubrik, we've learned from this and continue to strengthen our position to help you not only be able to recover the data, but do it even more effectively, more surgically, and faster, really, at the end of the day. And so what we're going to walk you through is how we can do that. And I'll give you guys a high-level overview of how we approach it, really from the perspective of a anatomy of a ransomware attack. So this is a bad day or bad night, bad weekend when these attacks typically occur. Your transactional systems have been locked down. The ransom note is received. In every organization at this point, they have a decision to make. We either pay the ransom, which is not really the best strategy, or you attempt to recover. Let's see if we can get the data back. And during that, we've seen there's usually two teams engaged. There's security teams that will perform forensics, what happened, and IT that's tasked with recovering the data. In many cases, the bad guys are smart. They know if they go and encrypt or delete your data, they got you. And if your backups have been compromised, you pay that ransom, or I don't know, you do something. it's not a good day. But if your backups have been safeguarded, that's awesome. But then the challenge becomes, well, what do we need to recover? What was impacted? What's the last known good recovery to pull from? What was exfiltrated? Who do we need to notify? And if that process takes days, even weeks, sometimes even months, leadership may say, pay the ransom. Let's just try to get our data back and hope that it works. And as we know, hope's not a strategy, and that's not a good position for anybody to be in. So Rubrik, what we've done, again, is we focus on security at the point of data, meaning that let's give you a position of strength to recover from. And it all starts with sharing data sets, collaborating between IT and SecOps or the teams to ensure that they're singing from the same sheet of music. They know what happened and how to recover. And foundational to our approach, as I mentioned, is the ability to recover the data. So we leverage things like immutability, as zero trust cluster design. We'll get into that more, but give you the ability to actually recover the data, to safeguard your backups. And then we also can layer in things like, what was the blast radius? What systems were impacted? So you surgically recover only those that were impacted, as well as what PII, PHI might have been exposed or even exfiltrated. And then quickly give you multiple ways to recover your data so that you get that data back within minutes to hours versus days or weeks. And ideally, you're at a position of strength when you're negotiating with the bad guys. You know what they took, if anything of value, and your data is back online. You're in a position of strength to tell them, go pound sand. I'm not paying that ransom. And that's the goal. That's really what we want you to be in a position to have that type of a scenario work out for you. So how do we do it? How does it all work? Adam will get into this in greater detail, but I just wanted to give you sort of a high level so you understand. And as I mentioned, it all starts with our modern data protection platform. So getting off of those old legacy backup and recovery platforms, moving to something that's modern, simplified, enterprise class, that it gives you the ability to protect all your mission critical workloads. We've also done things to build security at the point of data. And what we mean by that is we leverage things like immutability of our file system, which we built to ensure that nobody can encrypt or change or delete your backups. We've built a logical air gap into the technology so that nothing is discoverable from the network. We even layer in things like MFA, retention lock, etc. So additional layers of protection within the platform to ensure that your data is safeguarded. The next piece is that we put some intelligence behind what's going on with your data. We have a copy, if you will, of all your production system data, and we know how that changes thanks to the versions over time. So we can look at that and learn from that and decipher if there's a potential anomaly on your data sets, that there might be a ransomware attack occurring on these specific systems. We also can introspect the backups looking for sensitive information. What PII, PHI is out there? Is it in the right place? Who has access to it? Should the ACLs be changed? Should we delete the data, encrypt it prior to the attack to further strengthen your security posture, but also know what was maybe exfiltrated in the attack? We can even integrate this information into a SIM or SOAR. Things like Palo Alto or Splunk, or really anything by a syslog can be integrated into tools you may already be leveraging from a security perspective. And then giving you multiple ways to recover your data. In the instance of like virtual machines, we can recover your data as fast as you can boot up that VM. So you're back up in minutes versus hours to days. So that's really the how we think through this recovery flow. And as I mentioned, we can integrate this information into other tools. Adam will show you this, but I wanted to leave you with this concept of the ability to recover fast is not only the technology, but the information that both teams have, both IT, security, and the leadership teams, to make better decisions fast. And so from Rubrik, we realize we're not the only platform that you're going to be leveraging upon recovery. While we're foundational and important, we need to get this information to other teams. So we've built those integrations for you with some of the strongest partners in the game, like Palo Alto and Splunk, and continue to double down on these efforts. So that's really our approach. Again, get your data back, get it fast, get it right, be back online, and know potentially what was exfiltrated, and ideally not pay that ransom, and have it not be a catastrophic event, something that you can weather the storm, get through it, and get back to business. And that's really what Rubrik's all about. So that's really it, what I have from a slideware perspective. I'll pass it over to my partner in crime, Adam Turner, and he'll walk you guys through this in action. Adam, after you, my friend.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. Okay, quick double check that you can see my screen, Matt. All right, great. Thank you so much. So here we are at our main global dashboard for Rubrik. We'll do a quick little level set for anyone on the call that is brand new to Rubrik. So over here on the left-hand side is our global management application that we have called GPS. GPS runs on this global platform that we're looking at, which is called Polaris, if you will. It's almost like our app store. And today we have GPS, radar, and sonar. And so we'll walk through all of those today. Real quick level set on GPS, what it does for us. It is the aggregator of all these stats for our various clusters around the world, as well as a central point of management for configurations, such as defining protection, as well as doing recoveries. So this is our one-stop shop for all of our immutable air-gapped clusters around the world, which that design helps ensure that your data on Rubrik is immune to ransomware. We also provide built-in MFA to our customers so that we can protect against credential compromise. On the right-hand side is where we help customers start to build their cyber resiliency plan. So we have two solutions here. The one on the top right is Radar. What Radar does is it takes advantage of the built-in indexing and metadata catalog that we're generating through every single backup. And we compare the backup from yesterday to the most recent backup, or the two most recent backups, if you will, against each other to analyze if there's any type of anomalous type of change, whether that be just rate of change of the file system, whether that be significant files being added, such as a migration or deleted, as well as the metadata of the files themselves. Are the permissions changing in an odd way? And then last, and of course, with most interest to ransomware, we're going to be looking for entropy so we can understand our files encrypted today that were previously not encrypted. And what it really allows us to do is provide customers not only a ledger of what systems have been encrypted since their last backup, and because Rubrik is incremental forever, our customers take backups of their most critical systems rather often, sometimes as often as every hour. This provides us a relatively good mechanism to respond to ransomware events, especially the variants that like to hit in the middle of the night while we're all sleeping. So customers can, if they unfortunately do receive a ransomware note, they can hop over here to Radar and see how many systems have been encrypted based on the last backup. But not only are we providing customers with a ledger of what systems have been encrypted, we're providing them rapid recovery opportunities as well. So here we have 4 systems that are showing up in Radar as having been detected with a high degree of change and a high confidence in that change is related to encryption. So we can drill in here and see what's going on the system. As a demo environment, where our systems are encrypted and decrypted rather regularly. In a normal environment, this graph on the right-hand side would be rather steady state. And then once an anomaly was to occur, we would visualize that anomaly with respect to files added, modified, and deleted, created via this color coding, and anything suspicious, we're going to mark as purple. So if we have a ransomware event, we're probably going to see all 4 of these going up. And so what we can do next is understand, well, how do I get the system back online? So let's go and check investigate snapshot. And here we have a file system view of the system. So we can walk in here inside the C drive and see the exact blast radius of ransomware on this particular system. Since ransomware often has to keep the core operating system alive for communication back with the attackers, oftentimes it really is just the most sensitive data on the system that is encrypted that's going to prevent the business from moving forward. So Radar provides users with the opportunity to simply recover the affected data and then move on to the next system, providing a surgical method of recovering from ransomware instead of having to replay entire systems. So what we can do here, we could just go ahead and check this box next to file shares. If we want to just go ahead and recover all 4 gigabytes of this folder, we could also drill in here and see just a little bit more granularly what's going on within the folder that was hit by ransomware. And again, we can continue to check the boxes that are most interesting to us. And then we can just move forward with next and go ahead and replay these files individually. If this were a system where we needed to go ahead and recover the entire snapshot from the last known immutable backup, we also do have the recover full snapshot available as well, just to make sure that we're providing the end user with all of the recovery operations that they would need, from the most granular to the most macro during their recovery procedure. So again, this allows customers to rinse and repeat rather quickly through a ransomware attack by detecting, number one, which systems have been affected, and then giving them granular, speedy recovery opportunities from their Rubrik clusters. The next piece that we have up is, well, what about the second act of ransomware, which is data exfiltration, which is doubled from the last calendar year to this calendar year? Well, for that, we have the other application that we briefly discussed, Sonar, which we'll switch gears to real quick over here. And what Sonar does is it provides us a deep insight into sensitive data within those files. So as I mentioned previously, Rubrik indexes all unstructured data that we back up just as a way of doing business. And from there, we can analyze the human readable files inside of those backups to search for things like PII or HIPAA data, et cetera. And the best part about Sonar is that it has zero reliance on other external services, such as Active Directory or service accounts, et cetera, et cetera. Sonar is completely built and contained within the cluster that is already operating, that's already taking backups, and already knows about all the objects that we're protecting. So setting up Sonar is incredibly simple. So to get started, we'll just come up here to management. Here we have a variety of policies that come right out the gate from Rubrik that are pre-built for a lot of the most common regulatory bodies, PCI, HIPAA, US Financial, CCPA, and you can create new policies if you would like to, and create new analyzers to execute these policies. Analyzers are effectively just a regex pattern or a dictionary search pattern, and we wrap some natural language processing around that as well to help minimize false positives. And to get started with a new scan or a new configuration, we'll just do configure policies. And we can select as many policies as we would like to, custom ones, built-in ones, et cetera. And we have the opportunity to create a new policy on the fly, which also will give us the opportunity to create new analyzers if we have something custom for our organization, such as a PO status, an employee ID, something along those lines. And to move forward with configuration, after we've selected all of our policies and required analyzers, we can just hit next. And again, because Sonar is effectively piggybacking off of the configuration that's already been done and in operation with the cluster, all we have to do is just move forward with the objects that we're interested in. So we can select some file sets from a Linux host. We can select some VMs if that's important to us. And then just move next with the configuration, review the change, and that's it. We'll start doing scans in an incremental forever, just like we take backups in an incremental forever fashion. So the first scan may take a few hours. After that, scan should finish rather quickly after the backup completes. So next up, let's go take a look at some of the results and see what does this really get the organization. So we'll back out of this workflow and just head directly over to objects. And here we'll get a list of all the systems that are currently configured for Sonar scans. At the top, we have the system with the most amount of sensitive hits. We can see the cluster that it's coming from. Naturally, the object's name is the analysis up to date from the last backup, the last Sonar scan. Again, the total amount of hits. We can see how these hits are being divided up by the various policies that the system is configured for. Rate of change. So if we have a large amount of sensitive hits and we start storing them in different locations that are offline, we could see a downward daily change. Or if we were maybe to do an acquisition, maybe we could see a rather high daily change. And most importantly, with respects to data exfiltration, is going to be the security posture of these files that contain sensitive information. So this system is listed as high risk because it contains at least one file that has sensitive hits inside of it with respect to the policies that are configured, and has open access. Open access being defined as any of the default Windows users groups, such as domain users, authenticated users, the everyone group, basically anything that would allow any average user in the average organization to be able to read this data if they were to find it. So let's take a look at how do we actually drill into these results and how can we identify that file and its security posture. So we'll just come over here and click on Sonar 02. And here we get, again, a file system view. So we could walk the file system this way if we'd like to, similar like as we can do with Radar. Or we can just jump right to the files themselves, sort on the files that have the most amount of sensitive hits, if that's what we're looking for. But if we're really trying to drill in on the ones that have the open access, we can just hit this drop down, switch to file hits that have open access. And here we have our credit report with 8 sensitive hits. So this means that the 4 policies that we have here, they are configured with a variety of analyzers. Some of them have the same analyzer and different policies. All in total, we have 8 sensitive hits on this system. And at this point, we would have to switch gears into the cluster itself to view the sensitive data. So if we wanted to find the actual US financial information, if we were looking for the social security number itself, then we would hit the preview button and jump into the cluster where the sensitive data is always stored. The only information that ever leaves the cluster is just the roll-up, the metric for each policy with respect to the object it's assigned to. That information is transmitted to Polaris so that we can view it and manage it. But if we need to actually access that sensitive data, well, that needs to stay on the customer's cluster inside of their security. But what we're looking for right now is just the users that are on this file. So we'll click the users, we can scroll down here, and we can see that indeed we have a relatively good security posture, but domain users does look to be explicitly listed on this file. So our actions there would be to most likely remove the domain users group and then add any custom security groups that are needed to grant the proper access. So to take a quick look at the preview tab, we'll just drill in here. And so here is the results for the credit report PDF. We have our total hits broken up across the various analyzers. And here we can mouse over the hit itself to understand the content and some of the surrounding information. And then of course, we can also list the policies that this hit is being matched against, and then the actual analyzer itself. So that's from the assignment to the review of the system to the breakdown of the individual hit. And this is what allows organizations with Sonar to identify sensitive information and then understand a security posture to try and mitigate any risks of data exfiltration. And as Matt mentioned, we do have integrations with security-focused products. There's a lot of screen fatigue when it comes to security organizations. A lot of times there's various toolings that do the same thing just to make sure that we have an overlap. And to try to reduce that type of screen fatigue and try to enable the security team, we have an integration with Palo Alto's XSOAR product. So we'll take just a quick look at that. Here we are at the main screen. We can see that we have 3 new incidents today. So let's go ahead and review those. And we'll go ahead and click on this system right here. And we'll see the XSOAR results for this particular VM and its Radar and Sonar results. So we can see here that the status of the cluster that this information is coming from is online. Naturally, it should be. Rubrik is immune to ransomware. We can also see the files added, the files removed, modified. That's going to be our Radar information feed. And then we can also see the current status of files that have open access. So on this particular system, we already know the rough blast radius of the ransomware attack. And we could also assume, at least at the very minimum, that up to 641 files that contain sensitive information may have been copied out the door. To get a little bit deeper dive for this, again, for the security analyst view, we can just jump over to the Rubrik Polaris tab, and we see all of the actual Rubrik the Rubrik Radar information listed here in this analysis stage. And then all the data classification information, that roll-up information is listed here under the data classification screen. And then once the impact has been understood and assessed, the security team can jump over to the work plan, start assigning incidents into their playbook to move forward with ransomware remediation. And so that's what we have today for our organizations out there looking to become cyber resilient and maintain business in the face of a cyber attack. The Rubrik software itself, our core CDM platform, is what allows organizations to have a surety and that their backups are going to be immutable. They're going to be able to be recovered in a timely manner. And radar and sonar together allow us to understand the blast radius of a ransomware attack, and then understanding what sensitive information they may have accessed. Matt, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Adam. I thought that was a great overview, folks. And that's really it from a content perspective today. So thanks for listening in today. And I believe now we'll take some questions from everybody. So again, thanks for the time, and any thoughts that are on your mind, feel free to ask away.
All right, excellent presentation, Matt and Adam. Really love that demo there. Thank you for sharing that, Adam. Before we start our Q&A, I just want to point out to everyone out there in the audience that I brought up a poll question on the screen that says, what additional information would you like about the Rubrik solution? And this is a multi-select question here, so feel free to select more than one option on the screen. So with that, let's go ahead and kick off the Q&A. We encourage your questions. Of course, we want to help you to build a successful ransomware recovery plan. First question I see here that came in electronically. They're asking, does this include data compression and deduplication for the data that's being protected in Rubrik? Adam?
Yes, Rubrik does have built-in data deduplication and compression to minimize the storage requirements of our backups.
Awesome. And then there's another question. I want to make sure everyone sees the answer to this one as well. They're asking, how do we know the time it will take to recover the data? I'm sure the answer is it depends, but what are the factors?
Sure. Yeah. So that's a really, really wonderful question. So when we're talking about radar, we're generally trying to only restore the files that were encrypted, because these are usually our sensitive files, such as a database or a user document, and we can restore that data much faster than we could, say, the entire operating system that still has good working, still functioning files on it. So that's more of a comparative statement with respect to the speed. So we're restoring less data. It's just going to be faster than the alternative. If we do have a situation where the entire system does need to be restored, in that case, we could use an image level backup where Rubrik has the power to restore, terabytes in a matter of minutes on our hardware. And then we can if we're talking about a hypervisor, then we can do a storage motion of the data back over to the production storage.
Excellent. And then next question I wanted to ask you is, when it comes to, what makes Rubrik unique? I know you said that Rubrik's, the data store is immutable. It's immune to ransomware. But to me, the other thing that really makes it awesome is this recovery time, this fast recovery, because a lot of companies out there have backups, but they can't recover the data in a timely manner. So what makes the Rubrik so capable of recovering the data so rapidly?
Yeah, so we were designed from the ground up to be a scale-out performance-based solution. So we provide SSDs for tiering to move hot blocks across the network, and we also use a series of scale-out 10 gig interfaces for our clusters. So each node has a 10 gigabit interface, and we also support 40 gigabit interfaces for the larger enterprise class environments. And as we need additional capacity to hold backups, we're scaling out the 10 gig interfaces, we're scaling out additional SSDs, additional compute and memory to ensure that the Rubrik platform always has a proper ratio of resources to the data that we would need to restore.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for explaining that, because I think that's a big factor when it comes to considering any sort of ransomware recovery system, is the speed of recovery, because you have to do a mass restore in the event of a ransomware event. Another question here, they're asking about the architecture of the solution. Does it run on premises? Does it run in the cloud? How is it designed?
So we are a software company, so our software can run in pretty much any type of format. We can run on a physical format, such as the super micro clusters that we ship by default with our software. customers can also prefer to use their own third-party hardware manufacturers, such as a Dell, HPE, Cisco. And we have variants that can run on, something as small as just a one-use server in a rack, a virtual appliance, maybe on vSphere, and we also support cloud-native deployments on AWS and Azure, which also support VMC on AWS and Azure.
Awesome. A lot of different options there. There's another question here about would they be required to install agents on the, say, virtual machines that are being protected?
That question is a little bit of an depends, but if we're just talking about the bare minimum, we don't need any agents to take a backup of something like a VMware VM, a vSphere VM, an AHV VM, a AWS VM, or an Azure VM. The only time that we need to deploy an agent is when we want to guarantee application consistency. So that's going to be focused on our databases, potentially our physical servers, and maybe any other systems that are highly transactional in memory. So we don't need an agent, but we do have agents in certain situations to make sure that we get the best quality backup that we can get.
Awesome. And then I know you said Rubrik, the data store is immutable, but what is it that makes it immutable exactly?
Sure. So by default, our file system has been designed with immutability at its core, which means that the file system will reject any commands that will attempt to edit data that is on the file system. The only services that can communicate and talk to and work on data on our backup platform are going to be other Rubrik signed microservices. None of this is available online. So while there is 10 gig connectivity into the cluster, there are no NFS or SMB ports that are used to work on data or move data or transmit data. Everything is done behind secure RPC calls with a zero trust cluster design. So every system and component has to be signed by Rubrik, and this is all done through code interaction. We don't leverage storage type technologies as way of doing business, as ways of taking backups. So the immutability is built in at its core, but we also wrap it around with additional security measures, such as I mentioned, keeping it offline, but also building fingerprints for every block, constantly checking those fingerprints to ensure that blocks haven't changed. And when we do issue a restore request, we ensure that all of these fingerprints are again valid one last time before we present data to the outside world.
Smart. I like that. I like that design. I want to make sure everyone has a chance to answer the poll question there. We're about to wrap up our Q&A, so make sure you respond before we end the event. Let's see, there's another question here. I know you said that Rubrik has, API integration. It's built with a API first design. Can you give us some examples of maybe the types of integrations that might be useful, or what's commonly done with that API?
Yeah, a lot of the time, the integrations that we have around the API are going to be around automation. So we have our our API integration with Palo Alto that allows us to send information over to Palo Alto and then kick off tasks that will create an incident. We also have customers who will automate their own data within our platform. This is very, very popular amongst the database crowd, where they're able to start using the data protection platform in a copy data management type of philosophy. So because Rubrik can instantly restore terabytes of data and use the Rubrik storage as the platform for the restore, we can present that data back over to the same SQL host, a different SQL host, same thing with Oracle, which allows us to start using restores not just as a means for recovering from an incident or an issue, but as a way to actually accelerate business.
I like that. I like that idea of accelerating business through automation, automating common IT processes and being, more efficient with your data use. So excellent. Well, it looks like we've covered just about all the questions that have come in. I know we're trying to keep this relatively succinct. So it's been a really excellent event today, Adam and Matt. It's so great to have you on the event today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, David. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you to everyone out there in the audience. We appreciate your feedback there on the poll before you go. Don't forget about the handouts tab there. You'll find links to how to accelerate ransomware recovery with Rubrik and to the Rubrik website. So that's where you can, find out more information and maybe try out Rubrik for yourself. I'll leave up the poll question while I announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. This is going to Melissa Frechette from Connecticut. Melissa Frechette from Connecticut will reach out to you, and we'll also be reaching out to our best question prize winner as well. Again, thank you to the experts at Rubrik for this great event on how to build a ransomware recovery plan. I hope that you learned a lot. I know that I did. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.